Mike Signorelli, the Domino Revival is your film. It hit theaters and performed incredibly well. It's going to be hitting theaters again November 13th. I want to talk about the film, but before we do, you've been incredibly busy. You literally took over Times Square for Jesus, and thousands of people showed up. The images were incredible. What was this event that you held in the middle of the heart of New York City?
Yeah, by now people have probably seen the footage. I mean, thousands of people. Somebody misreported that it was hundreds. Like, put 200 people in Times Square and see what that looks like. Like, when you look at the footage, it was literally thousands, as confirmed by security. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It was an official event. This was not just us street preaching and drawing a crowd. We were actually given permission. It was a permitted event. We did it in order with excellence, but also honored the Holy Spirit. And let me tell you, Billy, like, I mean, it was just insane. At the end, I prayed for people to receive the gifts of the Spirit. There were hundreds of people that reported receiving the gift of tongues. And so New York City streets were filled with people singing in the Spirit. We had many drug addicts surrender drugs, people cancel suicides. And then the best part for me is that at the very end, I commissioned all of those people now go into the streets of New York City and lead the lost to Jesus Christ. And so the videos that people probably haven't seen were everybody actually posting their videos of praying and leading people to Christ on the streets afterwards. So to me, the most powerful part happened after the event was over. The real event was salvation spreading throughout New York City. It was just an incredible time.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some of the stories of people walking around, heading to dinner, encountering people, praying with them, after the event. And, what was it that made you, obviously you had the film come out, big reaction there. Why did you say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to go into the heart of New York City, one of the darkest places in a lot of ways in this country, and hold this incredibly spiritual event?
Well, Mayor Eric Adams actually put out, he kind of put out a news release saying something to the effect of, we need to have an increased vigilance because of the potential for lone wolf activity. And I live in New York City, I pastor here. So when that word went out, I said, okay, we always fight a spirit with an opposite spirit. So what's the opposite of fear? It's faith. And so, because faith is the evidence of things hoped for, it's the substance of things not seen. So fear is also when you have an anticipation of the things that aren't seen. So I said, you know what? We need to step out in faith. So I did a viral video where I walked the streets of New York City, just prophesying and declaring what I believe that God was doing in the midst of that time. It went viral. That opened up an opportunity to make a connection with the mayor's office. And then I said, you know what? I want to do an event in the heart. Well, they call Times Square the crossroads of the world. And so the world pays attention to Times Square, and whatever happens in Times Square is significant. And I said, I want to do an event. Now, thankfully, we connected with all the right people. We're able to expedite it, and the rest is history. And I feel like it was a historic event because, you see, I mean, it's very difficult to draw that many people in one place in a public space. And to me, that was the sign that America is truly ready for revival. We're in revival. We're in those days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that brings me to the Domino Revival, obviously your film. Talk to people a little bit about why you felt it was important to not only make this film, but get it to theaters, get it to a place where people could come and watch the amazing things that you document in it.
Yeah, well, listen, shout out The Chosen, shout out Jesus Revolution. Absolutely love what they're doing. But where those films fall short is that they're dramatic retellings of what happened. And the Bible is not the story of what happened, it's the story of what always happens. In other words, like, there are still movements that, God is still healing people. People are still being delivered of demons. People are still getting saved, whole families. And so, for as important as it is to retell the stories of Jesus and the disciples in, with actors and actresses, or the stories of the Jesus movement of the late 60s and 70s, it's just as important, dare I say even more important, to say, but God is doing something right now. And one of my favorite stories, Jesse Green, who's in my film, she was saying that she was in Pirates Cove doing baptisms in the same place that Lonnie Frisbee and Chuck Smith were. And she said she would talk to some of those Jesus Revolution people who are still alive. And one of them said, you know, while Lonnie Frisbee and Chuck Smith were baptizing people in Pirates Cove, my friends and I were down the street eating pancakes. And she was just, and Jesse was like, you know, saying like, we can't be the people eating pancakes while the movement is happening. And I think for me, I made the Revival movie to be like, hey, like we are living in historic times. And if the Lord tarries and Jesus doesn't come back, there will be documentaries about the documentary. Like we're in it right now. So, you know, for those of you watching, like don't be a critic, don't be a bystander, get off the bench, don't be the person eating pancakes while Jesus is leading the lost to himself.
Yeah, well, and the film is coming to theaters again on the 13th. People can go and see it across the country. Thanks, as always, for joining us today.